We're back and we're delighted to welcome now Juliet Hawk, who is the founder of the Hawk Group, an organization that specializes in visually persuasive storytelling. Juliet, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Juliet grew up on a farm, I just learned, in Ohio, and went to graphic design training at college and wound up doing litigation support for major clients like the United States government, the state of California. Julia, tell us a little bit about the Enron case where you played a useful role in helping the government successfully prosecute Enron.
Well, we were retained through the Department of Justice, and what our expertise was coming in was to help them take a very complicated scenario and how we were going to simplify it to a set of specific jurors so that they could understand accounting issues and relationship issues, how Wall Street worked. And so we were brought in to try to start crafting that story with the Department of Justice.
And here are two of the charts that you used. I'm told that this first one was used in the government. It's the government of the United States, folks, not some piddling thing. The opening statement of the government of the United States, they used your chart here, which you can see on the screen. And tell us very briefly what this shows.
Well, this was a graphic that I wanted to try to develop that put the whole story into one piece.
Yes.
And basically what this tells us is that they took money that was being lost out of one area, moving it into an area that was making money to offset those losses, and they didn't tell investors, and that was illegal.
And that was illegal. And then another graphic that you prepared, this one was used in the closing statement of the United States government, which successfully prosecuted Enron for conspiracy and fraud.
Well, that's correct. So this piece we worked on because not a lot of people really understand the true definition and the law of conspiracy. What we needed to do was put the fact that they didn't necessarily always work together on decisions, but they knew the same information. That's why the red bar connects them, even though they're a little bit different time frames, but they were connected by the same amount of information. And that, again, was the definition of conspiracy. Fascinating.
So you're using Madison Avenue techniques, graphic techniques. You even use storyboards. Now, I know from growing up in an advertising family that storyboards are used when you're constructing a video commercial or even a print ad.
Right.
And there are panels that kind of create a story, and you use storyboards in. Tell us about this.
Yeah, basically the storyboard is the first level of starting to see their case come to life. So what's happening here is that we start to take the evidence and start sketching it into concepts on how we would explain that evidence to the jury, and then from the storyboards we start seeing the case, really come to life, and then we'll take those and we'll pick pieces out of it to actually go and produce for the case, for the trial.
Absolutely fascinating. You also represented the Eagle County Prosecutor's Office in their prosecution of Kobe Bryant.
That's correct.
Tell us about that one.
That was fascinating. There was such a media storm. We basically worked with the lead prosecutor on crafting the opening statement on that as well, what kind of story was going to be told. Obviously that case ended up going away at the last minute, but it was a fascinating case, and there was a lot behind the scenes that went on. It was exciting.
And I understand you have a pretty good track record, batting average.
Yeah,
Tell us about
our batting average is probably around, I think we're like in the 75 percentile. We don't always get to pick our cases. I believe there's a right to a fair story, so not all cases people believe that, they always have an opinion what we should work on, but we're a business, and I do think you have just like a right to a fair trial, you have a right to a fair story.
And just for the record, your firm represented Philip Morris.
Yeah, well, actually my firm, I actually worked for a firm at the time, but years and years ago that we worked for Philip Morris. So again,
where they were being sued by different government entities.
Right, for the tobacco litigation. So it's not always, politically correct, but everybody's got the right to a fair story.
Well, that's what the attorneys say too. Everyone has a right to an attorney.
Right.
So the essence of what you do is visually persuasive storytelling, and that involves two concepts at least: storytelling, but also visual.
Correct. It's a format that I've kind of mastered over the years on a constructed story that is in a visual format to help people make decisions that you want to help them make. So it's basically whenever you need something from somebody else, if you can put a visual story together to explain to them why it's important for them to give you their decision, that's when it's successful.
So that depression request, brother, can you spare a dime, would have been more successful if they had a storyboard.
Brother with a dime.
Okay, and visual is also very much part of that element. Most people learn, absorb more visually, 80% visual and only 10% oral.
That's right, because your retention levels go up. And, you know, everybody makes fun of Ross Perot, but, you know, no one has ever forgotten Ross Perot's his approach. And we need more of that. We need more to understand. And I start to see more of that coming out in the news stations, and I think it's going to start.
And after Hillary Clinton came down with a medical plan when her husband was president,
right.
A senator had a Rube Goldberg diagram
right.
of that, and I think that killed it right there.
That killed it, right. Yeah. That was persuasion on the other side.
Yeah, yeah.
That's correct.
Okay, we'll be back with more of this fascinating discussion after these messages.